أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'm going to read chapter 70 Al-Ma'arij. So let's see here. I'm going to open it. Okay, very good. And we are going to finish it tonight, inshallah. Okay, very good. Go ahead, please, Mond.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A questioner asked about an inevitable punishment. The unfaithful have no defender against God, possessor of the highest heights. The angels and the Spirit ascend unto him in a day that its length is 50,000 years. Therefore be patient, a graceful patience. They surely see it far away, and we see it near. The day when the vacuum becomes like molten lava, and the mountains will be like fluffy wool. And no friend will ask about a friend. You will see them. The guilty wishes he could ransom his son on that day to avoid the suffering, and his spouse, and his brother, and his tribe who raised him, and everyone on the land, if only he could save him. No way. There will surely be hellfire, aggressive, ready to burn, calling on those who turned their back and fled, and hoarded and counted. Truly the human was created impatient. When he suffers any hardship, he whines, and when he is blessed, he becomes stingy, except those who observe the contact prayer, those who regularly observe their contact prayer, and those who set aside a rightful share from their money for the beggar and the deprived, and those who acknowledge the truth regarding the day of faith, and those who fear the punishment of their Lord. Indeed, there is no security from the punishment of their Lord, and those who keep their chastity, except with their spouses or those who are rightfully theirs, then they are not to be blamed. But those who transgress beyond this, then these are in opposition, and those who are highly trustworthy, and keep their word, and those who stand by their testimonies, and those who remember their contact prayers. These will dwell as honored ones in paradises. Therefore, what is preventing the unfaithful from joining you, from the right and from the left in mass? Does every one of them wish to enter the blissful paradise? No way. We have created them, and they know from what. Therefore, I swear by the Lord of all eastern locations and the western locations, that we are indeed fully capable of substituting instead of them those who are better than them, and we will never be overtaken. Therefore, let them blunder and play around until they come face to face with their appointed day, the day when they come out of the graves in a hurry, as though they are herded to the altars. With their eyes subdued, humility overwhelms them. This is the day that was promised.
Okay, mashallah. Thank you. Okay, very good. Okay, are there any questions, any comments on this chapter that we just read? Anything? Any thoughts?
Salam, Dr. Fazely.
Alaikum salam. Yes, Maryam, go ahead, please.
The verse 11. So I think instead of you will see them, they will see them. If you look at the yubasirunahum, I think is they.
Yes, it should be they will see them. Yes.
Okay.
You are absolutely right. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. No.
Okay, I'll fix that. Okay.
It was more of an FYI than.
That's very good. Very good. Thank you. Yes.
And I wanted just, Dr. Fazely, to thank you for the wonderful Friday prayer, and in particular the mathematics. I was shaken actually, and but I wanted just also. I was just Googling in the Old Testament and in the Bible if 1998, and so when I came across this the Psalms, David's Psalms, and I read so based on the mathematics I was just curious, okay, because you emphasized the last verse of chapter 19 and how we reached it and what it says and so on, and I read it. But if we read the Psalms also from the verse 19 to the 98, I was also shaken because it talks about the signs of God and the commands of God and the decrees of God and His laws, and how important that actually is it's some sort of a prayer where it states that we are longing basically for His laws and for His commands and for His signs, and after your mathematics, and when I read this, I thought even in how can I say, even in the Old Testament and the Old Scriptures, God emphasizes the signs that He constantly gives us in order to basically understand His commands and His laws, and the fact that, as you stated, everything is basically numbered or has a number assigned to it. But I just wanted to say, if really we read those verses, you're going to see the direct correlation between what you presented and the meaning of it. It's not only about the math, but what it does to our faith. And I wanted to thank you for that. By the grace of God, it's really one thing that take us to another thing. And it was just mind-boggling in the light of this, what you presented, and the chapter 19, from basically verse 19 to 98. It's mind-boggling how the message of God overlaps. By overlapping, which means even when you look at the previous scriptures, it takes you back there. So that's what I wanted just to mention, and thank you for it. But you made my day. Thank you.
Okay, very good, very good, mashallah, very good. Yeah. Any other comments or any thoughts or any discussions?
Salam, Dr. Fazely.
Alaikum salam, Shakira. Yes, go ahead, please.
Like you tell us all the time, reminding us about, exhorting us to do the contact prayer. In this verse, it is written in 3 places.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. How you always tell us to rush to do it. Just set aside thing and not waste our mind. And here it's telling it so clearly. Again and again, God is repeating it. Remember, even in Surah 23, so many surahs, it repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And as I said, I cannot say enough. Okay, let's just put it that way. That the contact race should have priority over all the other things that we do. And this is a very important occasion, as I said, and it's a very short period of time. So it's really incumbent upon us to make time for it and give priority over the other daily tasks that we do. Okay, and so that's what we should do, because that is a way for our salvation. Okay? And then you saw today, okay, that 786 that comes out there, and that's the very first verse that you recite in your Al-Fatiha. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
And that is absolutely amazing. Those numbers are speaking to us. Okay, and how is that related to 9127? It just boggles the mind. But anyway, so that's my whole being right now, and it's just to tell you guys about this, that we should not miss it. We should not forget it. Give priority to it. Do it on time. Okay, so it's extremely important.
That's actually very, very true. And just not 786. Today, that the connection between Surah 19 and also Surah 9, and then the 100 Surahs having 114, and all the, just 2, 3, 4, 6, and 1, 3, 6, 5, 4, 7, 3. All these, and now connected to this 956 and 13397. It's really, you cannot get away from it. This is it. It is. It's forming a formidable wall.
Yeah.
And you cannot.
Well, as I said, as I said, these are God's signs, and when I was talking about that, if you read chapter 19, it tells you all of those really strange situations that God is describing to us. And we read it before, that the voice comes from beneath her and tell her, do not be saddened, do not grieve. Okay? And we were not there to witness that. You see? And the other thing is that nobody was there to witness that. She was all by herself.
Yeah.
Okay?
Exactly.
Can you imagine that? And so, but this gives us the assurance that yes, sir, that really happened, and this is the reason. Okay? It's amazing, absolutely amazing. After what? After 2,000 years later, okay, you have this documentation that is speaking us in the language of mathematics. Okay, Kepler understood this. He said that this is that God inspired the universe with the language of mathematics. Okay, so the entire system is based on numbers. As I said, it goes back to the Pythagoras and the ancient Greeks. Okay, you're talking about 2.5 millennia ago that people were thinking this way, and now we see it in front of us. And the data which is available to us was not available at that time, but this is actually gives more gravitas to everything that we do, and it's absolutely beautiful. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
In Surah 57, it talks about those who, strive before the victory. And I don't know, it came to my mind that they believed without having any of this math, they accepted it, that God, like in Surah 3 verse 59, it says that Adam and Jesus, creation is the same. They believed that immediately. And here we see that the Jews called him a bastard, God called him a bastard, and Christians the Son of God. And yet there were people who actually believed strongly that she was really the one that God had, given, decided that he would create, and he did.
Yeah.
And now And now we have all this. We have all this math to show us that everything that happened really happened. Yeah. Not just about Jesus, but Moses really did, the Red Sea did happen. His hand was really white. Yeah. All these kind of things, we it's very easy to believe now. We cannot avoid that. We have to actually accept it. It's impossible to have something like this coming together that we are, we have no way of understanding how it is generated like that, and nothing like that. We are absolutely in a blank for that, and yet we know that these numbers are there all the time, getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fazely.
Thank you. Yeah, it's we go down here. It says, verse 23. It says, those who regularly observe their contact prayers. Okay, and then zakat comes immediately after that. Okay, it says, and those who set aside a rightful share from their money for the beggar and the deprived.
Yeah,
it's amazing. You see. And those who acknowledge the truth regarding the day of faith, they believe in the hereafter. Okay. And those who fear the punishment of the Lord. And then God says, indeed, there is no security from the punishment of the Lord. You see, this is what I was saying today. And when we transgress God's limits, okay, as a matter of fact, God says, do not approach them, okay? It says, Tilka hududullah. These are God's limits. وَلَا تَغْرَبُوهَا. Do not approach them, let alone, transgress. So, but these people transgress. They go even beyond that, and then they are going to be, punished severely. And he said, and those who keep the chastity. Mary was the one who kept the chastity over and over and over in the Quran.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. Okay. And then God says, except with their spouses and those who are rightfully theirs, then they are not to be blamed. Okay. And then he says, but those who transgress beyond this, then these are in opposition. So you are in a state of war with God. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I fear for a lot of people, because they are breaking God's commandments and they are not going to succeed. Okay. This is not going to bring peace of mind. This is not going to bring security. This is not going to bring anything to them except loss. Okay, so, and right here, okay?
Yeah, the thing is that people think that God is all forgiving, all merciful. They don't understand the fact that you cannot go beyond a certain boundary. There is a boundary. You cannot cross that. You cannot. And people don't understand that at all. They think that anything is forgivable, anything is this, God is all forgiving. No, it's not true. Because he's telling it very clearly, those who transgress, and they're not understanding what transgression actually means.
Yeah. Well, as I said, this season goes beyond that. God says, look, do not even approach it. Forget about transgressing, okay? Do not approach it. God's limits should not be even approached, let alone transgress. But these guys are transgressing, okay? And then God says, if they go beyond that, which is transgression, then they are going to. But we just read it here and it says, and those who remember the contact phrase. This is again God stresses on that fact. Okay, we don't do that, then we are not going to be, fearing God, which means respect Him to the highest degree possible. We will not have no respect for God. Okay. And then these are, it says that these are those will dwell as honored ones in paradises. Okay, there's no other way to get them.
Yeah. In Surah 2, it actually tells you that the reason you do your contact prayers, for some reason, what it does is that it prevents you from vice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So all these things that we are doing. And we think that everything is okay, but it's basically there is something in the recitation of the contact prayers. in the right way, that is going to make you not commit vice.
Yep.
It's that important that the more you do the contact prayer, the more you do it of time, the less you will be committing, atrocities.
Well, I mean, today what I showed today, okay, that you have that number, okay, 133.97, it becomes the 786, yeah. Okay, which is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You know how many people in the world say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim every day?
Yeah.
And they are basically saying 9127. Okay?
Yeah.
Forget about the contact prayers. We know that from the first chapter, which is Al-Fatiha. Okay? Al-Fatiha is longer, at 7 verses. Okay? So the number of people who say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is huge. And the number of times that people say it. And that's what God says. Don't you see that everything actually prostrates to God? So they do prostrate and they don't even know. Their tongue actually utters those sounds, but they don't know that they're saying 9127. But these numbers are telling us that's exactly what they're saying when they say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can you imagine?
That's a very good observation. That's excellent.
It's huge. I mean,
yeah,
the
definitely
connection between this is absolutely mind-boggling.
Yes.
Yep.
That's very amazing.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fazely. God
Thank
bless you.
Okay, mashallah. Okay. Any other comments or observations or questions?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely.
Wa alaikum assalam. Anwar, go ahead, please.
The overwhelming weight of the mathematics, the science that God gives us over and over again, in my opinion, it just supersedes all the previous science in the olden days that God used to show, like the parting of the sea and whatever Moses performed in the presence of fire. All that was related to a certain moment which was witnessed by a certain amount of people.
Yeah.
But this mathematics carries so much weight that it is just all encompassing, and anybody can see, can watch it, can look into it and appreciate it. But here's one thing that gives a lot of weight to it when you mentioned where the collective consciousness that God tells us about. Referring to Surah 27, when I read now about the hoopoe, hoopoe telling Solomon that the Queen Sheba was not on the right path, I mean, this is totally related to the collective consciousness.
Exactly.
It also brings to mind that maybe because we don't talk the language of the birds, but the birds can still observe and see things that we don't know about.
Yeah.
I mean, it forms part of the collective consciousness that God is talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the hoopoe knew that they were idol worshippers. Okay, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But, as I said, we go about our business and do all kinds of transgressions against God. And then all of these animals are sitting there and they understand what's going on.
Absolutely.
And this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way. It's absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's why I keep saying that we should ask God for forgiveness and repent to Him, that God will not show these kind of actions that we have done in the past. Okay? Somehow change our past so all of these things will be forgotten by those witnesses that were around. Okay? Or let's put it this way, you'll be born again. Literally. Yeah. Okay? And that's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It is so true, sir, when you say to ask God to force us to be appreciative, to force us to be righteous, to force us to tread His path. I mean, without that help, we cannot do it on our own.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long journey to go, but thank you so much, sir, for all the enlightenment and the wisdom that you get. Thank you.
MashaAllah. We're all learning, I tell you. Every week, we just learn something new. And it's as I said, these are these windows that God has opened up for us to paradise, basically. And and it's it's just amazing.
It is for sure. Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other comments or question observations?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely.
Welcome, salam. Yes, Sabduddin, go ahead, please.
So just an observation. You mentioned a short while ago about the baby Jesus calling from under, from beneath
Yes.
Miriam, and
Yes.
you mentioned that this was there were no other witnesses, and yet we are given a first-hand view of it, and that also brings to mind in that same chapter, in the story of Zechariah, when God actually says that it was a secret calling. So that calling only God and this gentleman, and we are able to see it. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of these things, if you look at it, okay, in the case of Zechariah, it was the same thing. It says that Zechariah tells God, "Wakanat imrati aghiran," okay? My wife is sterile. Okay? That's what he's telling God. How can I have an heir? He's surprised. Okay? So these are all signs that God is sending, but as I said, we were not there to see these things. And so, but the description here with the generator of it is actually talking to us, and it says, yes, this actually happened. Okay? And that's this invaluable blessing that God has given us. And as I said, we should be so grateful to God for having this, that we understand this and we can enjoy it. Okay, so every week, we enjoy it even more. And so when we read these verses, then God is talking about, like here it says, and nobody asked this question, but it says that the angels and the Spirit ascend unto him in a day that its length is 50,000 years. Okay? So remember now, God is telling us that a day of God is 1,000 years. Remember those other ones? Okay? So this is al-ma'arij, which means the highest height. Okay? And so here God says 50,000. That day is 50,000 now. Okay? Which means that the radius of that is 50,000 times the one day of this universe. So you can imagine how large that is, okay? So volume goes as cube of the radius. So that means 50 times 50 times 50, okay? So 125,000 times more voluminous than this universe. Okay, that's how large this is. So God gives us some kind of yardstick by which we can actually imagine that. Okay?
I never connected those dots before just now.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. And then therefore be patient, a graceful patience. Okay, so God is telling us, be patient, it's going to come, okay? And
thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Any other comments, questions, observations?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely.
Walaikum salam, Jerry. Yes, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you for the Juma and the message and everything. It's just, like I said, it's so mind-boggling. But I was reading a surah this week, and a surah 21, ayah 44, that's talking about On the contrary, we have provided for them and their ancestors during a long life. Do they not realize that we are shrinking the land around them?
Yes.
Are they the victor? So the word shrinking, I was thinking of shrinking, and the word you talked about expansion. So I'm just trying to clear up what God is expanding the knowledge and shrinking the land around us. If you can give me anything on that, I'd appreciate it. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the land is there, but it's not usable to them. Okay, and it has been throughout history. Some of the people, they have the land, but they don't know how to use it. Mm-hmm. So the land is useless to them. Then another group of people, God said, I replace you with another group of people. They're not going to be like them. Then they come in there and they take advantage of that land that was useless to these other guys, and they say, oh my God, there was all of this stuff available there, but they didn't use it. Okay? And it's just that happens all the time in our history and around the world. This has happened many times. That the group of people do not know how to exploit the blessings that God has given them, and so the land is shrunken around them. And the other ones, they use the same land, but they exploit the things that it has, all of the blessings that God has put in there. Okay, be it oil or bat dropping or whatever it is. Okay, if you go to Carlsbad Caverns in Mexico.
New Mexico.
I said New Mexico. Yeah. If you go to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, this place actually was a cave, this underground cave system that has a lot of bats. It used to have 5 million bats. And these bats go there and they have bat droppings. And the natives who were there, they were afraid, and they were not going inside this thing, and they didn't know what to use it for. So when the other people came, from the immigrants, they came, and they went into these caves and they got the bat dropping and used it as fertilizer for their farms. You see that? So to one group of people that becomes useless, and they are, they are afraid to go into those caves. And another group of people come and exploit that thing, those bat droppings, for fertilizers and growing crops and everything.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So as far as is the expander one of God's attributes?
Yeah, he says my land is expanding, not that it's expanded or expands. It's expanding. It's continuously expanding.
MashaAllah.
Okay.
MashaAllah.
But the thing is that God has to give you the knowledge how to exploit it. Otherwise, it's useless. See?
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Dr. Fazely.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions or observations? Anything else? Any other comments? Any questions? Any observations?
Salam, Dr. Fazely.
Walaikum salam, Nishat. Yes, go ahead, please.
About the patience, and how many times in Quran, I don't even know, God has mentioned that, and is telling us to be patient. It's really difficult, and we all think that it's easy, but for example, we see an injustice, and people all of a sudden jump and say, why God is not doing anything, why God is letting this happen. And last week you were talking about those little doubts that starts in people's minds, and then that causes the disbelief and stuff like that. I mean, I've been not recently, always, but in the past few months we were discussing this, one of my biggest prayers is patience, because we are all humans and, we see it far away. Truly, we see it far away. Every day of our life, like every week, when it passes, it's just like, oh, another week, and how fast it goes. But when it comes to waiting for the way God runs the system, we are very impatient. And so I think that's a prayer. There are quite a few prayers that God has even given us the words on how even to pray for our patients. And I think for me, it has been the focus of my prayers for God to give me patience. So, and just wanted to share that.
Yeah, very good. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it says that he was created impatient, you see. So we just read that. And let's see, where was that? 11. Okay. I think I missed it.
You just passed it, Dr. Fazely.
I did? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe go a little bit slower. I saw it as you were scrolling.
Verse 5.
I'm sorry?
Verse 5.
Verse 5? Okay. Yeah, there it is.
79.
Therefore be patient. Yeah. No, but that's not it. That's not it. That's not the one I'm talking about.
I saw the one that says human being is being. I saw it.
Yes.
17:19.
Yeah.
17:19.
19. Very good. Yeah, that's it. Yes. Yeah, the human being was created impatient. Yeah. And then it says that when he suffers any hardship, he whines.
Yeah.
And when he's blessed, he becomes stingy. And then God says, who are not the ones that are not like that? Illa al-musallin, okay? Except those who observe the contact prayers. Okay?
So true.
And they regularly observe the contact prayers. So, it's that's why it's so important. Yeah.
I mean, recently with a lot of things that are happening in the world, and astaghfirullah, people think that they're kinder and have more kindness or mercy than God. And when something bad happens, all of a sudden the same people who, like a minute ago, were saying we don't believe in God, start to say, see, God is doing this, God is doing that. And I'm like, make up your mind. Do you believe in God or not? And if you don't believe in God, then don't blame God for everything that's happening. But, I mean, even for us as faithful, it reminds me of Surah 18, and I go back and read it again and again. When Moses was going with the messenger of God, and he said, you can't withstand what you do not understand. I don't know if the word patience was in Arabic mentioned there, but I mean, it was just more was like, you can't withstand, or, and he said, I promise I will be patient or something like that. But I go back and read that because it reassures my heart that, there's a lot of reasons that we don't understand why things are happening and how, but just pray for patience and understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Fazely.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Any other comments or observational questions?
Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Alaikum assalam, Mahmoud. Yes, go ahead, please.
He had two commands: to keep your chastity.
Exactly. Yep.
And 34. the same word, right? You have it on. They also keep their salat on guard. Guard their prayers. Same word.
Yeah.
It's the same way that you follow that commandment of not going, transgression and committing adultery and fornication.
Yeah.
And you have to guard your chastity. Similarly, you have to guard your salah. You have to, uphold that. Shakra brought it up 23.
Yep.
We have the same verse 5 and 9 in 23.
Yeah.
The chastity.
Yep.
It's in verse 5:23, and it's in here.
Yeah.
To remember your contact prayers and keeping your contact prayers.
Yeah.
Guarding it, hafiz.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's in 34 and it's also in 23:9.
Yep.
Identical.
Yep.
Exactly. So just have to remember our salat is important. And what, as you mentioned, keeps us connected to God.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the highest thing that we could achieve, during those few minutes that you are uttering your contact prayers. I mean, in here, like, for example, in 33, it says, and those who stand up by the testimonies, okay? Remember? Okay? Do not bring false witness. Okay? It's amazing. I mean, then they're going to, they come in there and play with these words, okay? Well, it's not in our language, so we don't understand it. Come on, man. Give it a rest. How many different ways you're going to translate this? It means to give the correct testimony. That's all it says.
Right.
People know these things, but, people are just bad. Okay? They make some kind of excuse not to obey God's commandments. He says, and those who are highly trustworthy and keep their word. Don't lie. Okay? Do not be a hypocrite. Okay? And then it says, and these are the people who remember the contact prayers. Hafid is somebody who remembers things. Okay, like the Quran. Some people are Hafid.
Mm-hmm.
They know, they memorize Quran in their head. They remember. They can immediately go to some verse and recite it. So here, it's the same thing.
Is that the same word? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is that the same word when God says Filohin Mahfud or protected tablet? Is that same word as Hafid or different?
Yeah, it is. It is the same. Mahfud is the object. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Hafid is the file or the doer, and Mahfud is the one that keeps it. Okay, it was kept. Is the object.
Yeah. And bearing a false witness also when you testify Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of God.
Yeah.
That's a false witness.
Yeah, exactly, because you are not.
Testament.
And we read it in chapter. Remember, we talked about 48:29 when we were talking about 53:47. Okay, and so we were talking about that verse 53:47 actually is 48:29 verse that was from the beginning of the Quran. And when you go to 48:29, the verse before that, it says, "Kafa billahi shahidan Muhammadan Rasulullah." It's enough that God as a witness, okay, that Muhammad was his messenger of God. That's exactly what he says in chapter 63. He says, God knows that he's his messenger. Who are you informing? Isn't that amazing? And he bears witness that the hypocrites are liars. Yep.
I know. God bless. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Dr. Fazely, I didn't pay attention that the word in Arabic here is yuhafazun, which means guarding. But I was thinking about the remembering one of the things that, especially winter time, when the Friday prayers coming one after the other in a short period of time, and most of it is during the day. For those of us who work, I try to adjust my meetings and stuff like that, so I can do my prayers, and it's just like makes me it's constantly on my mind as things are coming up, and I'm like looking at the clock, and I'm like, oh, if I go or start doing this, then what's going to happen to my salat? And it, apart from doing the contact prayer itself that keeps you away from vice, just remembering doing your contact prayer, planning it, and all that stuff is when you're thinking about God and doing prayer, if you start to lie or say something bad, all of a sudden it's just like, oops, what am I doing? I'm thinking about doing my prayer and I'm doing this, So, but I don't know if in the context of guarding versus remembering, if it makes any difference, but that's my personal experience, that has helped me a lot. Keep God in my mind all the time.
Well, a lot of people forget, You sit down and you get busy with something else and you forget that you're supposed to do your contact prayers. And then you look at the clock and you say, oh my God, it's half an hour later now, I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens a lot to a lot of people. Okay? So they forget.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to remember that's a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Guarding really doesn't apply here because that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it happens. Especially with the changing time, it's not a specific time that you always say, okay, it's 3 o'clock every day. Yeah. Every day it changes. So you have to constantly think about it.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should be very mindful of it because otherwise, you're going to start doing something else and then you forget,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Salam alaikum, Dr. Fazely. Yeah.
Welcome, salam.
Yes. You were talking about this, and completely not coincidentally, the very first verse on the screen is, and those who remember their contact prayers.
Yes.
Just right on the top of the screen. So,
actually, when I was this is not. I actually translated at the very beginning to guard their contact prayers or keep their contact prayers, something like that. And then somebody said this in a meeting that we had, and then she said they remember their contact prayers, and at that time I loved it. Okay, because we forget a lot about our contact prayers. Sometimes you forget. Remember what happened to Solomon?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the sun set. Okay, so he got involved in this worldly things, and he forgot. So at that time, this is what and then when I put it all together, in Farsi, this is very common, okay? Then you say, for example, hifz. Hifz means that you remember something or you memorize something, okay? So, it's very commonly used. But also, hafiz in Farsi means guard you or something like that. Khuda hafiz means that may God guard you or protect you, okay? So that's another way of looking at it. But in the case of contact prayers, this makes a lot of sense.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, any other comments or question observations? Okay, if there are none, we'll finish for this, and then inshallah next week we are going to start chapter 71, Noah. And so we have a lot of requests for Al-Fatiha, so we have to do 6 of them tonight, okay?